Maria, I have a story for you.
I love good stories.
I
Go
know.
ahead.
In fact, I have a story that I've been waiting to share with you so much that I looked for an expression for today's episode that would match the story. So the story came first, and then I picked this expression.
I love it. I don't know the story. I don't know the expression. So,
That's right. And this is just the Spanish phrase where we talk about Spanish expressions. We're doing it in English because we want to get everybody in on the action here, but it's to nurture an appreciation for the language, I guess.
yes. And as you can tell, my accent is from a Latin American country, Venezuela. Have you heard of Venezuela lately in the news?
Oh, yeah, I think there's
Um,
been a few stories about Venezuela. It's
yes.
uh yeah,
Let's not
before
go there. Let's not go there.
No, I
What I'm
think we
saying
will. I
is,
think we will.
on the show, I speak Spanish, News in Slow Spanish Latino, and we have News in Slow Spanish Spain. So if you want to learn Spanish through the news or through series about music, about film, about all sorts of topics, legends, etc., visit our website.
That's right. And we don't shy away from engaging in interesting and sometimes controversial discussions there either. And that brings me to the expression that we're doing today.
Okay.
Dejar en el tintero.
Oh, beautiful.
You've heard this one before.
Yes, of course.
So in English, literally, it's to leave it in the inkwell or to be left in the inkwell. Tintero is inkwell, which is, of course, the little jar where you keep your ink back in the days when we used first feathers, right? And then
Fountain pens.
pens.
Well, back in the days, I still write in a fountain pen.
No, that's
It's-
so classy.
It's a completely different experience that writing with just a pen. It's boring writing in a pen. A fountain
Yeah.
pen, it flows. You feel so. I don't know. I grew up in France, and in
Mhm.
France, since you're a very little kid, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3,
Oh, they teach you?
we write in fountain pens.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
That's
And there is a
awesome.
special pencil where you can erase the fountain pen and
Hmm.
write on top of it. But yeah, I think it brings me back to my childhood to write in a fountain pen.
Yeah, it's very intentional too. Like I don't use a fountain pen. I'm not as elegant or classy as you, but it's a regular rolling ball pen or a pencil. It's very easy to pick up and just do. But when you're writing with a fountain pen, it feels like you really have to think about what you're going to write.
Exactly.
Does that?
Yeah. So your ideas come across more structured.
Now, what about the ideas that don't make it onto the page? Because that's what this expression is about. Dejar en el tintero means
To leave it there in the inkwell,
That's
not
right.
to say it.
That's right. So that's what the expression means. It means the things that go unsaid, the things that maybe were better left unsaid. Or in Spanish, you can use it in both ways. Things that are better left unsaid, but also the things that you really wanted to say, but you didn't say them for whatever reason. There was an obstacle. There wasn't enough time. And those things se quedaron en el tintero. They stayed in the inkwell. They didn't make it onto the page.
Although, before you tell your story, it makes me think sometimes it's better not to say something than to say it and regret it.
True. And in that case, I would say, fue mejor dejarlo en el tintero.
It was better to leave it there and
Mhm.
just.
Because you can
what's
get
your
in
story?
trouble.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I almost got in trouble, and that's the story. So I rarely use the sauna. I like the sauna, but I don't often use it. I don't have enough time, usually. But when I do, like just the other day, I don't talk. I'm a quiet sauna user. I sit there and I sweat in silence
It's like the elevator.
without the
You don't-
music.
You don't
But yeah.
engage in conversation on elevators, on saunas, or on steam rooms. It's kind of weird.
I think it's even weirder in steam rooms because you can't see people. But this time,
Mhm.
I sat down and there were some other gentlemen there with me, and I overheard them talking about tariffs.
Oh no, you're supposed to relax
I
in the
know.
sauna.
I
Forget
know.
about the outside world.
But I took the bait.
oh,
Yeah, I started talking. I engaged. I started asking questions, actually. I wanted to see because there were clearly different sides of the aisle in this conversation, if you know what I mean. There were
Mhm.
some conservative opinions, some progressive or liberal opinions. And one thing that everybody agreed, though, was that nobody liked these tariffs and the application of the tariffs and what it meant for their businesses. So I engaged with this gentleman, and I started having this conversation that got, and I'm sorry about the bad joke, but it got heated. In the sauna. I'm sorry, I had to. Anyway, this gentleman self-identified as an immigrant, an Armenian gentleman who owns several convenience stores, very unhappy about the tariffs and what it means for his bottom line, but says that he voted for Donald Trump, would vote again for Donald Trump, loves Donald Trump, and in his words, just didn't like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. So I asked him, why? Why don't you like them? Why didn't you like them? Because they give everything away, he said.
Ooh.
And I asked, to who? To immigrants.
Okay.
And Maria, I started feeling my heart rate go up. I started getting lightheaded, and I think it was probably the sauna.
I don't think it was a sauna.
So I did have a conversation, very civil, but at that point, I left the rest in the inkwell. And part of me wishes that I would have kept going, but it was getting too hot in there.
Yes.
And I decided to leave and just have some fresh air. But I wanted to say, gosh, immigrants build this country. You are an immigrant. You're upset about how immigrants are stealing from our tax dollars, I'm assuming, but they represent a small fraction that, like abuse and fraud, every system has that. They represent a small fraction of the amount of money that's being stolen by people with lots of money, billionaires, I should have said more, but I left it unsaid. Lo dejé en el tintero.
I think that was wise of you, Renzo. I must say I'm actually proud of you because I think right now we need to keep
Cool heads.
yes, and our peace and try to have civilized conversations and try to keep a sense of community. If we start dividing even more, I think it's going to be for the detriment of the
Yes.
entire country.
Yes, I think you're right. I think I handled it okay because he knew what my stance was and I knew what his stance was, and the conversation ended on a civil note. Agree to disagree.
What did the other gentleman say in the sauna? I'm curious.
Oh, the other gentleman started laughing. He was actually another immigrant from Norway who was talking about how ridiculous the tariffs are and how they don't work, and historically they've always led to bigger problems. And that's true. As a student of history myself, tariffs, protectionist tariffs, they don't work. They haven't worked.
I'm not a student of history, but I could see how the stock collapsed.
Yeah. And anyway.
That's very recent history, 2 days ago. Ooh, down.
Lo dejamos en el tintero. We'll leave the rest unsaid. But can you think of any other example of things that are better left unsaid?
Well, you know how we Latin Americans and immigrants in general, we communicate a lot with our families through WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And there's always provocateurs in every WhatsApp group.
Oh,
trying to, hey, did you read this news? He was right. He should, and I used to engage in every single discussion with my ideological opponents.
Yes.
And now I realize nobody convinces anybody. Just time will tell. And I am leaving many things en el tintero.
Yes. This person was thriving on the arguing, right? On the controversy. So you stop feeding the gremlin.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I believe what I believe. I vote for who I vote.
Yeah.
And it's not the same person who you vote for. And I think after 4 years, you're not going to vote for that same person.
That's right. So I guess we come back to something that we often come back to with these expressions, because these expressions are, they're tapping into philosophical ideas, right? Questions about life and how we live our lives. Like with so many others, we need a little balance. Some things are better left unsaid, and sometimes you do have to speak up.
Yes.
Y no dejarlo en el tintero.
Everything in moderation, balance with everything, the middle way. That's my motto, especially the next 4 years.
Wow.
as much as I can. Let's see how much.
So
It's a
well,
daily. It's a daily battle.
it's a good mantra. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, with that, let's end this episode of Just a Spanish Phrase.
And I hope you leave some things in el tintero today if those things will lead to arguments or to fights.
Yeah.
And you don't leave them in the tintero if they will spark a better communication with whoever you need to communicate.
Very good advice.
All right. See you next time, guys.
Adios.